Ever wish you could just understand what's really driving the people around you? What they're really thinking? Well, today, we're cracking open a profiler's toolkit. But this isn't your typical TV show stuff. This is straight from the world of military intelligence. We're going to learn how to see what's really going on.
So let's just start with this. Seriously, think about it for a second. What if you could walk into any room, any meeting, any negotiation, and have a real sense of what makes people tick? Imagine how much that would change things for you. Now, the insights we're diving into today come from a profiler who was trained in military intelligence. So forget about the crime shows you've seen. This has nothing to do with catching serial killers. It's all about understanding the deep psychology of our everyday interactions.
Right, so let's get one thing straight. We need to redefine what we mean by profiling. Forget everything you've seen on CSI. This is about real, practical skills you can use to understand people's motivations and communicate way better. With your boss, your partner, anyone, really. This whole approach really just boils down to three core things. First, the social masks that we all wear. Second, the decision patterns that people fall into again and again. And third, their hidden values. What truly deeply motivates them? You get a handle on these three, and you've got a roadmap to understanding pretty much anyone.
Okay, let's dive into level 1, reading stress signals. But to do this right, we've got to start by unlearning some of the biggest myths out there about body language.
You've definitely heard this one, right? That 93% of all communication is nonverbal. Well, that's actually a huge misinterpretation of a study that was only about communicating feelings. And what about crossed arms? Come on, sometimes it just means a person is cold or uncomfortable. Real profiling is way, way more nuanced than these simple myths. So, here it is. This might be the most important concept in all of this. It's called establishing a baseline. Before you can ever spot what's weird or unusual, you first have to know what's normal for that person. How do they talk? How do they gesture? How do they sit when they're totally relaxed? That's their baseline. And this is a huge mental shift. A profiler isn't a human lie detector. They're a change detector. They're just watching for any deviation, any shift away from that normal baseline, because that's the tell. That's what signals a stress response, and that's where the interesting stuff happens. So what does this change look like in real life? Well, it can be super subtle. You might see their blink rate suddenly speed up. Or maybe they start these little self-soothing gestures like touching their neck or fiddling with a pen without even realizing it. You might notice their breathing shift from their belly to short, shallow breaths in their chest. Or even just a hard swallow. These are the little signals the body sends out under pressure, totally unconsciously. All right, once you can spot those physical tells, it's time to level up. Let's move to level 2, unmasking the social personas that literally everyone wears. Now, a social mask isn't just about being fake. Think of it as the identity someone carefully projects to the world. It's the version of themselves they want you to see. And here's the kicker. More often than not, that mask is built to hide a core insecurity. It's an overcompensation for some deep fear, like the fear of being seen as weak or dumb or just plain insignificant. Let's look at a perfect example of what's called a significance mask. The profiler tells this story about a car accident. Now, the basic fact is simple. I broke my spine. But listen to all the extra details. Commercial director, London Consulting Group, PepsiCo CEO. All of that stuff is there for one reason, to project an identity of importance. That's the mask in action. And this is really important. Recognizing these masks isn't about judging people. It's actually the opposite. It's about understanding that deep down, we're all driven by pretty similar insecurities. Seeing the mask, really seeing it, is the first step toward genuine empathy and connection. Okay, so now we can read stress signals, and we can identify the masks people wear. Level 3 is where it gets really interesting. This is about using that knowledge to actively influence people and communicate way more effectively. The core principle of influence is surprisingly simple, but it's a little counterintuitive. Here it is. Don't talk to the person you think is hiding underneath. Talk to the identity they're working so hard to project. In other words, speak directly to their mask. You have to acknowledge and validate the person they want to be. This leads us to a super powerful technique called identity hacking. It's pretty straightforward. First, you figure out what mask the person is wearing. Then, you link whatever it is you want them to do directly to that identity. You frame it so that doing the action becomes a natural expression of who they already want to be. Here's exactly how that works. Let's say you're talking to someone with that significance mask. First, you validate their identity. Leaders like you who have such an impact.
Then you attach the behavior you want, are always open to new opportunities. See what happened? You've made it almost impossible for them to disagree without contradicting the very image of themselves they want to protect. It's brilliant. All right, for our final level, we're going to turn this entire toolkit inward because these same principles can be used to hack your own mind and change your own unconscious behaviors. Now, to understand how this works, you have to know about a little piece of your brain called the reticular activating system, or RAS. Think of it like a bouncer at the front door of your conscious mind. It decides what information gets in. And here's the crucial part. You can't program your RAS just by repeating mantras. It doesn't work that way. Your brain learns through experience and repetition. You have to show it what's important over and over again. And here's a dead simple 30-day exercise to do exactly that. First, pick one behavior you want to change. Let's say losing your temper. Now, for 30 days, your only job is to observe it. Don't try to fix it. Don't judge yourself. Just at the end of each day, rate how you did on a scale of 1 to 10. That's it. By simply observing and rating, you're training your brain's bouncer to flag that behavior. And pretty soon, you'll notice your awareness shifts from, oh man, I did it again, to, whoa, I'm about to do it. And that moment, that's when you finally have the power to choose. So we've opened the Profiler's Toolkit. We've seen how understanding stress signals, social masks, and identity can completely change how we see other people. But maybe the most powerful thing you can do with all this is turn that lens back on yourself, which leads me to one last question for you. Now that you can see the masks, which one are you wearing?